I want to take a special opportunity this Father's Day week to talk a little bit about my heritage, especially as it pertains to the practice of medicine and my choice to go into medicine. And because it's Father's Day and I have a long history of fathers and grandfathers who were in medicine, I thought it'd be really fun to bring my dad in, who's one of my inspirations and why I chose medicine in the first place. And also wanted to talk a little bit about my grandpa. So let me tell you kind of my story. I grew up in Layton, Utah. When I grew up as a young child, I always had my life associated with medicine. And part of the reason was because my grandpa was one of the first original doctors in northern Davis County. So he was one of the founders of Tanner Clinic. He and 4 other doctors got together and began Tanner Clinic. And so from my earliest memories, I remember coming to Tanner Clinic, getting my cowboy shots is what Karma called them, and having all of my health care provided by my grandpa. And not only having my health care provided by my grandpa, but being known in the community as a Bitner and as somebody who was associated with my grandpa, who provided care for so much of this area. He delivered babies back in those days, so he was a family practice doctor, but he did many, many different things. In fact, he used to do some surgeries in people's homes. So he told me a story about going into somebody's home and taking out tonsils in everybody in the family on the kitchen table, which I can't imagine doing any of that. Anyway, so my earliest memories were those being associated with medicine and with my grandfather. Well, when I was a child, my dad decided to follow in my grandfather's footsteps, and so some of my memories are my dad in medical school and residency, and he finished his training when I was 12 years old and moved back into the same community where I was born. My dad started his practice with his father. So he was an obstetrician and gynecologist who delivered babies. And so as a teenager, I was again associated with medicine. It was my father and all of the people that he had delivered and meeting people that knew him and said, "Oh, your dad delivered me," or "Your dad delivered my brothers or sisters," or whatever, and always being associated with that. In fact, I always wanted to be a doctor. I don't ever remember not wanting to go into medicine. When everybody else was talking about being a fireman or a policeman or whatever, I wanted to be a doctor because that was what I knew. That was my only memories that I had. When I played football in high school, the coaches all called me Dr. Bitner. And when somebody would get hurt, they'd say, "Dr. Bitner, come over and look at this guy." And I'm a junior in high school. I know nothing about medicine. And yet I'm the one making diagnosis and treatment decisions because of my association with my last name that came from my father and from my grandfather. So when I look back and I think of what were my motivations to go into the practice of medicine, why did I want to not only practice medicine, but do facial plastic surgery? It all comes from my father and my grandfather. So on Father's Day, I'm so grateful for my posterity, for my heritage that comes from my dad and my grandpa. And I just want to pay special tribute to both of them for the impact and influence that they've had for good in my life. And I guess from just a perspective of life in general, not only did my dad and my grandpa teach me how to be a doctor, teach me how to love and care for patients, teach me how to really have their best interest at heart, where I wanted them to have a wonderful outcome. I cared about their experience that they had in my office. Not only did they teach me those things, but they taught me how to be a good person, and I hope I'm living up to that. They taught me how to be a good dad. They taught me how to be a good husband. And when I think of the examples that I want to live up to, it's my dad and my grandpa. And so on Father's Day, I express love and gratitude and appreciation for all that they've done to me, all that they've done in my life, and express my love for both of them. Well, when I first came back into Utah and began my practice here, it was 2009, and my grandpa was still alive at that point, so he was probably, Dad, maybe 86 or 87, maybe when we moved back here. And it was kind of fun because Davis Hospital decided to highlight the 3 of us because we were 3 generations of doctors all practicing at the same place and same location. So they did a little tribute to us and actually made some billboards and things and put our faces up on that. Dad, tell me some of your memories about what your motivations were of going into medicine, and what examples did Grandpa provide for you that made you choose the career path that you did?
Well, My father was very involved in medicine in the community because there were only 4 doctors in their group, but there was another group, the Clearfield Clinic across the street, and they were very congenial and they were very influential in getting this hospital in our community. They initially started at St. Ben's, which is the old St. Ben's up on the top of the hill, and McKay, and they would drive in there to see their patients. And I remember stories of Dad driving up there and having seen a patient in the office, and she was going to have a baby, and he said, "We better head up to McKay." And so my dad had a Corvette at the time, and he said to the husband, "You drive the Corvette and I'll drive your car." And I think it was partly because he's afraid if she had the baby in the car, she wanted her to have the baby in their car rather than his car. And as you turn off Washington onto Harrison to head over to McKay, he pulled over, and the father pulled over, and she had the baby right there. And so they hurried in, and interestingly enough, as this little baby grew up, he ended up being in my ward, and I knew him and I knew the family forever. And so it was these kinds of relationships that he developed in the community. And so when I decided I wanted to go into medicine, I wasn't at the time exactly sure what I wanted to do, but during my training I had some incredible experiences in delivering babies, and the joy of that experience and the tenderness of delivering babies, it's going to make me tear up a little bit because I love that part of it. One of the favorite things I saw was to see these big, strong husbands just weeping as this baby came out. They're so strong and tough, and there they are, and it was the greatest thing ever, and I love that. So it was wonderful to get involved in the community and to get to know a lot of people. And now I retired in 2019, and everywhere I go, I run into people who say, "He's the one who delivered you." I was at an outing a while back, and this lady came up to me and she said, "He delivered you." And I looked, and he's like 6'7", and I thought, I bet you're glad he wasn't that big when he was born. But those were wonderful experiences that I loved, and it was real easy to get involved in the community. And Tanner Clinic has always been, very focused on providing good care and getting quality people. When my dad started, John said there were 5 of them. When I started, there were about 12, and now there are around 260 doctors and physician's assistants, and all because of the need in northern Native County to provide good quality care. And so all of that together is what caused me to want to practice with my dad. I have brothers who are doctors, and they decided that they didn't want to be in the shadow of my dad. Well, I wanted to be in the shadow of my dad because his reputation was so good. If he'd had a poor reputation, then maybe it would have been a different thing. But I love to finish office, and I'd go over to his office and we'd talk, and he'd send patients to me, and they'd say, "Your dad's taken care of me for 20 years, and now he's passing me on to you." And it's like, I hope I can do as good a job as he did. But I love that part of it. And then the hospital decided to add on to the buildings, and they made this building over there, and they decided to name it after my dad.
Which reminds me, if you're coming to our office and you see the Robert F. Bitner building, that's not where we're at. It is my grandpa. That's not where our office is.
And a lot of people think that he invested in that and that's his building, and that's not true. It was a hospital building, and they honored him by naming it after him. And so it's been a great community for me. And I loved working here for 35 years, and I'm grateful that John was able to come along and follow in our footsteps, because I had a relationship with my dad that my other siblings didn't have, because we loved the same things. We talked about care of patients and the good and the bad. There are very, very happy experiences in medicine, and there are some very, very difficult situations in medicine. And my dad was such a great hand holder in helping take care of people who were going through heart attacks and cancers and so forth. And he said, I love taking care of older people because there's so much you can do for them and they are so grateful. And I said, I want to take care of babies and moms because there's so much you can do for them and they are so grateful. Your relationship with that woman and her husband and those babies is precious and tender to me. And so I was so excited to be able to join his group. And then John, who he says that he was always interested in being a doctor, and reminded me that when he was in high school, during the summer, he'd bring a physiology book home and study physiology during the summer. While the rest of the world is going to summer camp or whatever.
I knew what I wanted to do.
He was studying physiology. I always thought, wow, that's an interesting thing. But anyway, it was great when he decided to come join, and it's been wonderful, and I love it. And I loved working with you, and I love that you're here, and I love all the good that you do and the happiness you bring into people's lives. Great success that you have. I am a little disappointed, though. I guess he does hair transplants, and as you can see, it didn't work on me. Or maybe I should say, he did say it's too late. But
I guess there are some teaching examples in that, Dad. So yes, you can lose too much.
I guess you're right. Anyway.
Well, some of the things that you said, Dad, that really totally struck home with me is that reputation means everything, and that happens one patient at a time. You have to take care of that patient every minute of your interaction with them and make sure that that's positive and you're doing your very best so that they have a good experience. And I hope that I've done that. I know my grandpa was the perfect example of that. I know my dad was the perfect example of that. And so I feel this weight that I can't mess anything up. I've got to make sure that I do everything that I can to make sure that my patients have a perfect experience, because that definitely was the reputation that I walked into, and I'm so grateful for that. I remember, Dad, when I first started my practice, I would say that almost every patient, or at least multiple times a day, people would say, "Oh, I loved your grandpa. Oh, your grandpa took care of me. Oh, I've known your grandpa. Oh, he repaired this laceration on my face 30 years ago. Oh, just would tell me story after story after story." And then after a number of years, that started to fade, but it was all replaced by people that my dad had delivered. In fact, I didn't tell you this, but just the other day, William and I were going on a walk around the neighborhood, and we ran into somebody that just lived up the street from us, and they're like, and I knew them, we go to church with them, but they said, "We love your dad. The reason that our son so-and-so is here is because my wife was on bed rest for 90 days or something like that. And your dad came to the hospital every single day to watch over and take care of her." And it's their youngest son who's a teenager now. And I was just so grateful. And this happens all the time, that people tell me of stories and experiences of what it means to be a Bitner and what it means to take care of people in Davis County and how you meet their medical needs. Another thing that you said that I thought was interesting, and I don't know exactly why I was so driven towards my specialty, so facial plastic surgery, but I was really just enthralled by this area of medicine, just the care for ourselves and how to do the best we can with what we have and how we can, just be as healthy as possible and look as best as we can. And some of it, I think, honestly, may come from that feeling that you like the happy experiences in medicine. And medicine can be hard, and medicine can deal with, obviously life-threatening situations with cancer and heart disease and everything else, or you can do really things that enhance people's lives. And I think delivery of babies, I can't think of anything that makes me happier or of better experiences than that I share with my family and my experiences with my own children and the births of my children. Those are things that you can never forget. Those are the most impactful and elating and spiritual and just incredible experiences of your lives. And to be a part of that as a baby delivering doctor, what a beautiful area of medicine to practice. And I think I've had a lot of those same experiences, and maybe that was what drew me to this area of medicine, is that you just like those really fun parts of medicine where people come in and they're excited and they've waited and researched and seen others' experiences that they've had with some of the areas of facial rejuvenation or rhinoplasty. That probably plays a role in sort of my drive to be part of of my specialty and what I do is just that I really enjoy the happy parts of medicine where good things happen. So anyway, Dad, I love you.
Love you
I am
too,
so
John.
grateful for you. I am so grateful for you and Grandpa, and I'm so grateful for just what it's brought and how much my specialty has enhanced my life and my family's life, and especially for all the other things that you've taught me and the example that you've been for my entire life. I have looked up to my dad from the day I was born. I mean, I remember just so many experiences with looking up to my dad, to how he treated other people and his honesty and integrity. And I've always wanted to emulate that in whatever I do in life, is I want it to be like you. And so I love you, and happy Father's Day.
Thank you.
We'll celebrate again in a couple
Yes,
days.
we will.
We'll celebrate
too.
on the cruise the next week after
Yeah,
that.
that's right.
And we love you too, Grandpa. We know he's listening.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And we're grateful to be
He
his
started.
posterity and for the legacy that he's left us.